Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on Episode 6 of Spy Family Season 3. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. Alright, so last we left off, Anya finds herself in the rather unfortunate position of having to now compete with Yor, making friends with Damien's mom. Naturally, she has decided to sort of redouble her efforts, although, things aren't going too well. Now, we're at a point in the manga where, if memory serves, we are swiftly approaching the last chapter of the year in 2023, where it was published, it was announced that there would not be another chapter until February, and things ended off on a big cliffhanger. And I don't know exactly where the end of the episode will lie, but I'm really hoping it'll leave off in the same place, because that would be incredibly funny. Without spoiling what's gonna happen, things are gonna be real interesting real quick, and I think it'd be really funny if they did the same thing again. Because basically, when things went down in 2023, there was a lot of posts on the internet describing that, the author was off his meds and going crazy, and then he somehow slipped this past the editors and got it published and all that. People drew fan art of the editor kicking down the door looking for the author and stuff like that. All sorts of funny monkey business. And, I'm sure there's absolutely no truth to any of it, but it would be funny if it was. So, nonetheless, I am tentatively very excited for the end of the episode. I hope things get, serious in the way that they had in the manga. Ooh, so back to present events, it seems like Anya has made a little bit of a misstep here. And, it's, to be expected, I guess. Damien is in an unfortunate position where the prestige of his family is such that a lot of people just want to leech off him, and, maybe accusing Anya of that isn't necessarily true or done in good faith, but you can't discount the possibility as well. Now, meanwhile, Lloyd certainly is popular at work. Now, not as his actual work, but rather his disguise as a psychiatrist. That probably goes a good way to helping him out here, that if he's well-liked by, the other staff and the patients, they're probably, liable to give him the benefit of the doubt, if things are a little bit odd or if he has to dip out, I could see everyone else sort of opting to cover for him even if they aren't necessarily, within the inner circle of spy work, so to speak. Although, speaking of the inner circle, we have good old Fiona here. She is an interesting character who hasn't cropped up much aside from that one episode. Naturally, the one thing we know about her is that she's absolutely smitten with Lloyd, and she is very, very jealous of Yor and all that. She can't do much about it, but, oh, how shameless. She's even trying to do it right now. It's like, no. Like, I could be your wife. Teehee. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate for her that Lloyd just shut her down like that, but I guess it is kind of helpful to have her around, if only because Lloyd can sort of pawn off tasks onto her. The big thing right now is that Lloyd is concerned about Melinda Desmond, the woman who Yor recently met, and, the idea is that she might have some connection that Lloyd could eventually take advantage of. And that would be a good thing. But, before any of that can really be contended with, it seems as though there's a little bit of awkwardness in the workplace. The director of the psychiatry department is, I guess, envious of Lloyd, which, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's, kind of beneath the dignity of a doctor, but, I mean, people will be people. So I guess, if Lloyd really wants work to go smoothly, he's gonna have to, fix things with this guy. And, there's likely no real easy way to do such a thing. Ooh. Alright, so something has made itself apparent to us, the audience. Lloyd could pass Fiona off onto him, and that would get rid of, 2 problems in one fell swoop. Not that Lloyd is aware of Fiona's feelings, or that he even considers her a problem, but it would be nice, in a sense. Fiona is, I guess, generally even-tempered enough not to cause trouble, but there have been instances where she does kind of get a little bit ahead of herself. So, everything just keeps going in Lloyd's direction, no matter how the director tries to undermine him and make him look bad, everyone just takes it as oh, Lloyd's a really hard worker, that's why he showed up 1 minute late to a meeting. Not that I think, being late by 1 minute is really something to get, real bent out of shape about, especially if it only happens once. Wow. It is interesting that the director of psychiatry here is not above, essentially poisoning people, providing people with laxatives, that's no good thing. You really shouldn't be doing that. Although it is interesting that despite all these embarrassing things happening to Lloyd, everyone just kind of takes it as endearing. Oh no. Oh dear, the director doesn't know what he's doing here. He made a fake letter for Fiona. Oh dear. I mean, obviously, this is a sick, twisted scheme to get with Fiona and all that, but, okay. Well, I guess Fiona could immediately decipher that it is a fake, but I was gonna say, she'd be liable to kill this guy. He doesn't know the type of fire he's playing with here. I mean, even right now, talking to Lloyd, she's like, I kind of want to kill that guy, and thank God cooler heads prevailed. Lloyd's saying, no, you shouldn't do that. But, man. This guy's really barking up the wrong tree, contacting security services and all that. Now, I do believe that the state apparatus he's calling is, not one that Lloyd works for, but, if he's calling, the not CIA, and, Lloyd answers the call. Like, that's a real good way to get, like, dragged to a black site and tortured or something. And to be fair, like, the guy's asking for it by, bringing in the government for what is essentially a petty work dispute. Well, this guy's a real jerk. He's like, I'd really like it if Lloyd was arrested in front of everybody, but, that would obviously cause a scandal, and he didn't even care about that. So, obviously, like, all these charges that the head psychiatrist are bringing are all fabricated. I'm wondering what he hopes to achieve, because, in a sense, like, they could potentially find something. Lloyd is in fact a spy, but I would think he's clever enough not to leave anything incriminating at work. I'm starting to get the feeling that maybe the doctor here is going to be arrested instead. I wouldn't be surprised. Although that said, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if that had been Lloyd in disguise anyways. Well, maybe not, I guess. Ooh. So this has got to be, a rough change of pace for Lloyd here, having the cuffs slapped on him under suspicion of espionage. Okay, so here we go. Lloyd's in on it. He's just going along to try and get the psychiatrist off his back. Yeah, I guess it does make sense that he would really just try and go along with all this and, get Frankie and Fiona in on it too, just to make things, look realistic. For someone who is a, master spy, Lloyd wasn't exactly putting on a real, convincing performance that he's an innocent man being, framed for this heinous crime. So this is an interesting turn of pace. Like, they're just getting the director to sort of admit his role in all this. Alright. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. They're trying to scare him straight here by essentially uncovering that it's a forgery. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like they're not actually going to arrest the guy or anything. They're probably just trying to really intimidate him. But I don't know. It seems a little clumsy, I guess, to pretend to be state security services in public like this. For someone who they're trying to pin, like, potential wrongdoings on, that seems like a rather petty list of things to arrest a man for. Alright, so here's the twist, I guess. Lloyd's gonna stick up for the director, thereby earning a good reputation with him by essentially preventing him from being taken to a black site and tortured. Not that any of that would actually really happen. This is all a farce, but I guess it's kind of like a long game in a sense. Like, this guy's a problem, he wants him to not be a problem, therefore Lloyd sticks up for him when it really seems like it might matter. Oh, Frankie, you rat. Saying like, oh, you civilians are so naive. I mean, I suppose in a sense that is true for the doctor, but, I don't know, man. It feels a whole lot less sincere coming from someone like Frankie. So I guess, with this man's now undying gratitude, I think it's safe to say that Lloyd's gonna get, his pick of VIP patients, which could very likely include Melinda Desmond. Yeah, so it seems like it was kind of a win-win all around. Except for, the director, I guess. Like, ostensibly he'd be avoiding prison, but, there was never any real threat of that. So back at home, Anya is still aware that Plan C is developing, which, bodes poorly for her. In actual fact, I don't think anything would happen to her, but it's just one of those things where I feel like, children have certain ideas about the way things work, and, that's just how it is. No, wait a minute. That terrorist is named Billy Squire? I suppose I must have missed that in the manga, but, yeah, we're getting to it, So Anya and her class are going on a field trip. They're taking a bus, per usual. And, it seems like they're going to a museum with dinosaur bones and mummies and all sorts of other interesting things like that. That's pretty neat and all. I find it interesting that, only some of the kids are excited, because I feel like no matter how you slice it, a field trip is better than just being in class and all that. Although that said, I guess, Damien's just kind of dead set on not having fun, and more to the point, not making friends either, because he views everyone as a rival. That's, it's kind of a harsh thing to say as a child, especially one so young. So, Anya has decided that perhaps her best way to make friends with Damien is to, sort of emulate Lloyd a little bit by being a smooth talker and all that. However, this imaginary scenario she's concocting in her head, I feel like, first of all, it's not how things are gonna go, and second of all, like, it's just totally unrealistic that a kid would be kicked out of class for being ugly. I mean, at least Anya has sort of the right intention, whereby she could stick up for Damien should he get into trouble, but, I don't know, man. It's like the old saying, the plan never survives contact with real life. I guess case in point, Damien didn't exactly fall for the bait. Although at the same time, it seems like the plan might be bearing a different sort of fruit. Damien, of his own volition, is sort of like, Anya's probably mad about her snack and all that. Maybe I'll give her some of this stuff to, call us even, if nothing else. And that isn't necessarily indicative that he wants to be friends, but it's probably a good sign, It's at least indicative of a sort of honorable personality, So per usual, it seems like Anya's just mainly focused on eating peanuts and all that. While the topic of snack food has come up. Ah, man. I I don't know what the point of offering dog food is as a present, because, like, that's only going to cause an issue at best. And I feel like Anya would be wise to avoid doing that if she really does want to make friends with Damien. Now, interestingly, things have started going a little bit wrong. You know, the school bus took a wrong turn. So I guess the question is, what's going on? Oh no, it's the other way around. The other bus took the turn and, these ones didn't. But seeing as how Mr. Billy Squire here has boarded the bus, it's safe to say that things have started hitting the fan rather quickly. You know, it's never a good thing when someone, tases the teacher who is effectively the only authority figure on the bus. You know, especially now that it's clear that the bus driver is in on it. Alright, so it seems like this is not like a sort of flying by the seat of the pants operation here. There was some clear planning that went into this. If, given that the presence of the escort vehicle has been identified, that Billy Squire here is taking action to disable it. So, I'd imagine for the students of Eden Academy that this is probably supremely terrifying. I do find it interesting, however, that Billy Squire here is like, hey, you guys are smart enough to know what's going on, right? I mean, I don't know, man. We're dealing with, 6-year-old kids. You know, I feel like they're not smart enough to sort of overcome just, immediate reactions to something like this. And, unfortunately, we did not end off on the same cliffhanger. A little bit disappointing, but I guess things will get even more interesting next episode. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.